Joining me now is filmmaker and journalist Ami Horowitz. Ami, were you cherry picking there, or was that the majority opinion amongst the protesters you spoke to?
Yeah, so generally the way I work, I lift the kimono a little bit, let you in on the process. Look, when I do a video, what you see is the majority view of who I speak with. Sure, there might be dissenters who think differently, but if they're not the majority voice, the video doesn't go out, or I make the video to reflect that. So generally in my videos, that's the majority voice. This video, Rita, was different. This was every single person. In fact, I had an addendum at the end of the video stating that. I spoke with over 30 people over the course of a number of hours, and not a single person deviated from the views you just heard. You know, I also shot another segment I didn't put in the video, but I also asked them, are we on stolen land? Or should we give this land we're talking about is California, Arizona, New Mexico. Should we give it back to Mexico? They all said yes, or they said give it back to the natives. Look, let's be clear about something. These people are not stupid. I know it's an easy tag to put on people, say, oh, they're just fools, they're useful idiots. No, Rita, they know exactly what they're doing. You know, it always got me upset during the Palestinian pro-Hamas protests when people said, oh, they're just fools, they don't know what they're doing. I'm sorry, you hollowing out the power of their intent by saying that. They know exactly what they were doing then. They were calling for the genocide of the Jewish people, the destruction of the state of Israel. They knew exactly what from the river to the sea meant. They may not have known which river, which sea. That's a geography lesson. It has nothing to do with the reality of how they felt. Same thing with this. They're not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. The entire time, Rita, there was an undercurrent of violence, right? The violence broke out night after night in Los Angeles. And you can feel it even in the daytime. If you said the wrong thing or they thought you were the wrong person, they would take you down. I was standing there when somebody said, I love America, and took out an American flag, and they beat him, just like they beat me in the campus at CUNY, where I took out the American flag. The same thing happened here. It's the same. People wearing keffiyehs there. That's on purpose. There's an interconnection, the intersectionality between these people and the pro-Hamas voters. This is where we're at in this country, where they want the destruction
of the United
States, Rita. Yes, no question about it.
It is the same crowd. I mean, they are the same anti-American, anti-Western civilization crowd, whether it's BLM riots, whether it's pro-Hamas, whether it's crazy environmentalists, or in this case, these anti-Trump, anti-ICE. They're the same crowd. And what's worrying there, as you showed in the video, was that they have no issues with violence. Not only do they tolerate violence, they think it is a sound method to achieve their goals.
Absolutely. No question about it. And by the way, and we saw it night after night, not in LA, all the BLM riots. You know, I was also the Kings protest, the No Kings protest that in New York. And they didn't look. What you heard everyone whispering and talking and saying. You could hear them say it. Look, no violence. Let's not create violence. Even though that's where their intention was going, but they put it out there because they know that it's an issue for the narrative if they were violent. And I asked these people in the No Kings protest the same questions. And while it wasn't as across the board as it was in Los Angeles, I would say it's about 50% of people. I asked the same questions. 50% of the people at the No Kings protest felt the same way. They defended violence. They said this is stolen land. They didn't say this is not about due process, it's about destroying the system. So look, this is the left unmasked. Straight up, pure and simple.
It is. And you only have to wear a keffiyeh and walk amongst them, and they will say all those quiet bits out loud, the things they don't say on the sound bites, and because they know the violence is counterproductive as far as winning public support. They're not stupid, but they're more than ready to act violently. And let's have a look here at CBS. They're copping some criticism for promoting the rally, promoting it, and even promoting merchandise for the rally. Look at this. No King's Day merch for sale on Amazon, Temu and other e-commerce sites. I mean, have they given up any pretense of being a news organisation, Ami?
Yeah, it's not CBS. It's all of them, right? I mean, all of them are simply at this point, they're just pushing a narrative. They're polemic. It's polemic. It's not news. It's not reporting. Look, Rita, I was at the protest and I saw in the LA protests, and I saw them asking questions. And in a couple of cases, the same people that I spoke with, and they're asking the most anodyne questions possible, right? They didn't cut to the heart of the matter of why you're here. They could have asked the same questions I did. It's obvious the night before there was a tremendous amount of violence. They didn't ask them anything about the violence, whether or not you supported them. This is how the media, mainstream media works. They are pushing narratives. They are not trying to report on actual news on what's happening, and are frankly reminding me of the BLM riots. The same thing. I asked the BLM rioters the same type of questions about America, the heart of how they believe, what they believed in, and then saw CNN and NBC and CBS and ABC ask ridiculously questions that didn't get to the heart of anything. I saw, Rita, I was at, if you remember, the burning down of the federal building in Portland. And I remember that all these camera crews, their cameras were down when these BLM rioters were trying to burn the building down. And then the cameras went up when the federal officers came out and threw out tear gas, as if they were doing it unprovoked. This is the business of the media organizations today, Rita.
Well, that's why trust in the media in the US is at record lows. I think it's like something in 1 in 10 Republicans has any trust in the mainstream media. Donald Trump is facing, some would say, an impossible balancing act, living up to the America First agenda, the no wars agenda, and America's role in the Israel-Iran conflict. Clearly, the Trump administration wants to demoralise the Iranian regime and ensure they don't get their hands on nuclear weapons, but how far do they go to make that happen? Here's what Secretary of State Marco Rubio said after Israel took action against Iran. He said, Israel took unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. Israel advised us that they believed this action was necessary for its self-defense. President Trump and the administration have taken all necessary steps to protect our forces and remain in close contact with our regional partners. Let me be clear, Iran should not target US interests or personnel. Ami, this is very difficult for the Trump administration. How can Donald Trump manage the expectations of the no-war members of the base, which are not insignificant in number?
Yeah, no, it's a very difficult situation. And frankly, look, we've talked about this before, and it's doubly true now. I think the Iran strike kind of highlighted this discrepancy and the split in the Republican Party between traditional Republicans and isolationist Republicans. I want to point out one thing first before I continue on down that road, is that when Israel was hit by ballistic missile after ballistic, like hundreds of ballistic missiles that slammed into Israel, killing Israelis, damaging buildings, the Iran deal, which is what Trump said he wanted to back out of it, he did in fact back out of it in his first administration, and went on and on saying we will never go back to that. Well, one of the reasons why we hated that and why that agreement was horrible was that they allowed Iran to continue to build and to develop ballistic missiles. And now you see the results today as these things are slamming into Israel, killing Israelis. I just want to point that out, okay? And why Trump took us out of that deal. But going back to the split, no, it's a significant issue. You can see, look, J.D. Vance, as someone who is aligned with the more isolationist view, he said something really interesting in the Kennedy Center not long before the attack on Iran, when he said, I'm not convinced Iran wants to build a nuclear weapon. I mean, what is he talking about? I know Trump doesn't believe that. Trump was firmly in the camp of they are trying to get it, and we will stop them no matter what it takes, including allowing Israel to do this. He knew Israel went to him and talked to him before the attack. He made that very clear, and Israel made that clear, and he gave him the green light because he understood that the talks with Iran that he was conducting were going nowhere. But when J.D. Vance says, I don't know if they want it, it reminds me, Louisa, I've told the story before. It reminds me of when I met with the Obama negotiators of the Iran deal, and I asked them the same question, and we're talking about Iran and nuclear weapons. They said to me, how do you know they want to build nuclear weapons? We're experts and we don't know. It's alarming to me that he used the same language as them. But look, Trump is firmly in the camp of we have to stop Iran, and I'm glad that he did. I think the world is better off for it, frankly.
Well, what do you see happening next? Are we going to see this conflict continue until Iran is demoralised to a point that any ambitions of having nuclear weapons is gone for the time being? Or really, if you need to cut off the head of the snake, do you need to have regime change? Because the mullahs aren't going to stop after this. They're just going to regroup and launch the next campaign.
Look, regime change is, of course, ultimately what everyone wants, right? Remember this. The Iranian people are great. Look, I am Iranian, okay? The Iranian people are pro-Western. A lot of them are pro-Israel, frankly. They're very practical. They understand how the world works. The compact between the regime and its people, the reason why the regime is still around is because they made a deal. They said, look, don't get involved in the way we run the country, and we will allow you to have a great life, a material life, business and money. Well, they failed, and they failed the Iranian people, that compact, right? And I think that ultimately that's what is going to push regime change, and that should come internally. We should not be pushing it ourselves, although we shouldn't be hindering it. Look, if you guys remember, there was a point in time where there was a possible revolution brewing in Iran, and Obama did not do anything to help the revolutionaries flip the regime.
No.
We definitely don't want troops on the ground. No question about it. But you want to help the people who are trying to reform that country. And he didn't do it. So yes, look, ultimately we don't know what's going to be the end result.
That one of his great failures there was Ami, where the Iranian people were putting their lives on the line, and America was entirely missing in that episode. Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Always a pleasure.